Right. So I've just had a thought. Under occupation, they have the ability to stop mass gatherings. So the lockdown, we could say, is the finale of an agenda that's been going on for a very long time. Since Thatcher, we can tie this back to. But I think the first hit on it was the closing down of venues for gigs of all natures, and that came with the Criminal Justice Bill. Do you remember that one? Late 80s into the early 90s, based entirely on the repetitive beat. And that was the point at which venues were totally closed down and what were left was totally licensed. So they expanded the licensing in relation to venues that service the public. The first one you could say is licensing to sell alcohol. And of course, the Criminal Justice Bill gave them the right to license just to have people in. So your health and safety, all your fire stuff that seems to have given our firemen these days this idea that they can just tromp onto your property. See, I've seen this happening quite a few times lately. I'm sort of thinking I might just have a fire just to see them try that and then receive a pickaxe handle in the face for entering and trying to trespass on my property, because they are actually moving that way now. And it's a shame because I know quite a lot of these firemen, but for them to shift into that kind of mindset that they think they can actually come onto my property because the commanders told them they can, pretty much shows today we've got primary school mindsets in the fire service, which of course is a private company run by the stakeholder committee, no longer doing working for you. They're happy to trespass on your property. So I just thought that we can see a serious path to shutting down gatherings of all kinds and travel, which they've achieved under this lockdown. But we have to take the Criminal Justice Bill as the first move against that very thing. Also, creating the Premier League and all that came from that, seated, etc., etc., just annihilating the huge football industry that was based on the fact that there were a lot of clubs and organisations that weren't even in the leagues or were in the, the leagues, school leagues, etc., the local leagues. That was another hit. So you had the event in Liverpool where all those supporters were killed. You had the Bradford fire. I think there were 3 incidents. Oh, and then there were one in Italy, wasn't there? Those were setups, completely setups, which is why none of the investigations have ever got anywhere. They were set up as a Freemasonic event through the use of the police, which is Freemasonry. People really have to understand this. The highest levels, all the command levels are run by Freemasons. Noahides, remember this. This is the military for the Noahide. On the street, pretending to be lovely and fantastic, hides behind charitable status, when really what they are is just a massive means of procuring your money by deception to be used against you then, as we can now see, to put their own men in all these positions. So you got in the fire brigade now, you've got them in the police, and now they are acting the Noahide platform, which is what Freemasonry is all about. So can you see what I'm saying in relation to how long this has been going on? And this lockdown has actually given the final nail in the coffin to complete control of gatherings, the movement of people, the supply chains now for everything. I mean, for building, construction, all the supply chains. Travis Perkins supplies all building products into this country. It's a Northern Ireland based intelligence operation, and it's huge. And when I was younger, the gripe that my grandparents had were that the roads were being wrecked because of these huge wagons on the road, and that they should be put on the rail because the rails were struggling. Well, that makes perfect sense. If you've got a rail system covering your entire country, would you not use that then as your supply chain? Well, yeah, of course you would. Absolutely you would. So then you can look back at why the Rothschilds instigated the complete breakup of the rail system from the late 1800s. Was to destroy our backline ability to supply every single part of this country and run things in and out of it off the rail, because they needed to get it on the road, because on the road wasn't nationalised. This gave the Masonic networks the ability to start to gain full control over the supply chain in this country and everywhere else that they've done this. So this is why they never put or did the sensible thing, which would have put their heavy haulage on the rails, wouldn't have damaged the roads, etc. So you can see that the system, this play has been going on for a very long time. So any ideas that people might have that the Noahide system is something new, it's incorrect. This has been going on for thousands of years. What is new is the fact that now it's being externalised so that the people can see it, because they have to have it implemented through the consent of everybody. So there you can see the Masons run all the haulage companies. Yeah, this is why they've kept them on the roads, and now we've given them full control of the supply chain. We've privatised the docks, we've privatised the airports. The same system controls the in and out of this nation. And now to the point where they're telling you can't go. If the airports weren't privatised, they couldn't be forcing any of this nonsense. They couldn't. This is the corporate realm operating all this. And the lockdown was the pinnacle of everything they've been trying to achieve since the introduction of the Patriot Act and the Contingency Act. Because now it puts our entire nations totally underneath those platforms. So in Britain, it's the Contingency Act 2004. That is perhaps one of the most evil body of data protocols that this corporate system is going to operate under emergency. We are under emergency. We are under emergency. And, every time they have a pandemic, every time they have a terrorist terror, every time they do something, boom, something's stamped. The state of emergency is continued. Occupation rules are in. Everything's going along spiffingly, according to exactly how the United Nations demands it to be so. So that, I just had to get that out, because I'm just going through the video I made last and just absorbing it, how it's coming across myself. And that just made me think, yeah, absolutely, this is what they're doing. So now they've managed to completely control all public gatherings, all public travel. And now, of course, you've got the unions now claiming to represent 7 million health workers who you've all raised to the top of the tree because the telly told you to do so, and then gone outside and clapped just to acclaim their sovereignty over and above you, are now lobbying the G20 and all the global meetings that have been postponed or moved to September of this year. They are lobbying, these unions representing these health workers are lobbying the G20 to ensure that their fiscal recovery is green. So that's Agenda 21. And under COVID protocols. So can you see how now you've just raised up a bunch of liars who've been hijacked now by 7 mouthpieces who claim to represent these organisations and people, these frontline at the top of the tree who are fantastic and amazing because they've told you lots of lies and got away with it, are now lobbying the G20. So they're determining global policy. Yeah? Are you seeing how this is playing out now? So you can't see this if you're watching TV, because if you're watching the TV, you are getting the propaganda from these organisations. You're getting exactly what they want you to see. So you miss these interconnections. You can't see the bigger picture because generally you fear. You're focused only to fear. You've limited your capacity to actually be aware of anything outside the little bubble that you just keep closing in on yourself called fear. You have to snap out of that so you can think for yourself again and stop watching the propaganda, or at least understand that what you're watching is propaganda. That when you're watching these people stand between those 2 red crosses in 10 Downing Street, you are looking at talking heads who have just been told exactly what to say and what not to say. They have it set up so that the questions that are being asked are from specific people, journalists in pharmaceutically owned media operations, due to the fact the pharma supply the money at 70% to those entities, asking questions to give those talking heads the ability to not look into the camera while they're telling big porkies. Because it's very difficult to just stir it. You've got to be a psychopath. And there are one or two I've noted that do stand up there between the Red Crosses who are very happy to lie to you because they are psychopaths. Okay, I'll leave that for you to determine who they are. Boris was struggling at the beginning, so they whisked him off and pretended he had COVID. Boris was not comfortable lying to the public. That's why he was took off. And in come other talking heads. Why? Because the occupation is running this. The United Nations Security Council is running this. We are under a state of emergency. The Contingency Act is operating in this. The Patriot Act is operating for the Americans. We've got military on the streets. Well, they're not actually on the street. We've got military supply chains operating. Our army is operating on our land according to a foreign military force. And they're not telling you this. Yet the lads don't know this, but the commanders do. The officers do. So you can see we now have a divide. We have officers who are prepared to act contrary to Britain, to Blighty, to the British Isles. Okay? Because they're operating according to this Noahide. Why? Because they're all Freemasons, they're all Jesuits, they're all Knights of Malta. Knights of Malta being subservient to the Jesuits as of 1798, enforced by Napoleon. Are you starting to see this? This is a secret society takeover. All those secrets, the Rotary Club is a global and international operation, and it is the overseer of this secret society agenda. It was behind 9/11, if we are to take the words of Leo Zagami. And I remember when he came out in 2008, I'd done the same in 2000. So I know that need to express himself as he was then on an emotional thing is the result of coming out of that. You have this so I knew he was speaking his truth back in 2008. Yeah, and I also understood a lot of what he was saying, because, as I've said before, you can go through the lodge into the secret societies. You can go through the Catholicism to Opus Dei, through Knights of Malta, through the Jesuits themselves, and the many other secret society organisations. But you're only going to be going into the front for what's really going on in the back room, which is governed by the Memphis Rise, or the Illuminized Rise. Now, that's the mystery school entrance that I took part in from 93 to 2000, was the doorway into the Illuminized, you know? And since 2001, I've attempted from all angles to educate the Masons, to educate even the Catholics as to why things have gone array, because the secret societies have took over their institutions. I mean, and Catholics look, oh, well, they'll blame everybody and blah, blah, blah. No. Your system, the Vatican, went up its own arse because you as Catholics going to church, we're not going to church to absorb the reading, the teaching, the mass. You were going there more concerned about the hierarchy in the congregation. So while you were busy doing that, you weren't noticing each time what you were sitting with in the mass was changing. So Catholics are responsible, and the priests and the bishops and the cardinals, for the Catholic Church going up its own arse. Okay, you're responsible for that, just in the same way as the Protestants are responsible for allowing the secret societies or Freemasonry to do the same in the Protestant religion. You're responsible because you weren't paying attention. I mean, I was invited to our local parish, and I went there for a couple of years because the congregation were absolutely lovely. But the one thing I noticed is they're not in there concentrating on what's being said. It took me to stand up and contradict, and not contradict, but bring this vicar to task, because the reading they'd had in the morning, he was showing in his speech that he completely didn't understand a word of it. And I stopped the service because I've been told that in Church of England you can do that if the vicar's acting contrary. So I did. I took notice of what were going on in the service. And it didn't take me long to see the contradictions of it all. It didn't. It was just so blatantly obvious. So, if you're looking for cause, if you're a Catholic, you want to look at yourselves, look at your parents, because it's a slow, incremental debasing of the actual Mass and the actual essence of what it is that's going on there. And the same in the Protestant churches, the same for the Jews in the synagogues, and the same for the Muslims in the mosques. If you do not understand the basis or foundation of what it is you claim to be representing, then how can you possibly see when those who are claiming an authority in that institution are going off track? You can't. How could you possibly do that? It's impossible. You have to have the grammar within if you are to understand what is being poured out from those claiming authority in relation to what it is you're involved with. So, yes, we can expose and show where this is coming from, which I've done for many, many years. But ultimately, what you've got to recognise as well in all this is the book stops with you, because you are determining the outside world in your own little way. That's what we all do. Collectively, we're all doing it. Individually, we're all doing it. So if you're part of a collective that's operating contrary to what it is you believe it is, then you are responsible for that if you remain, if you do not expose it, if you do not bring the issue to the attention of your family, you know, your congregation, your friends, the colleagues that attend those institutions. If you do not bring it to their attention, you are failing. You are responsible. You are responsible for what you do. Remember this. You know, I had to stop going to the church because the simple reason where I could see every time I went, this vicar fresh in from Africa, a white guy, been there 15 years. They were more like shamans than they were anything like a clergy. It was quite ridiculous. And you've got vicars running around in Subarus. It's like, how can you possibly complain that your institution's gone up its arse when clearly it's gone up its arse and you did nothing to stop it? Yeah. That's what's happening in this world today. So it's about understanding yourself certain things and factors that make this world work so that you can actually see where it isn't working, where it's not being carried out, where it's not being done, and then those who are happy to carry out that agenda. Because that's all it takes. When you know somebody's acting contrary to what they're claiming to be acting, get rid of them. Put somebody in that isn't, then it works. But if you're going to just sit there and just let this bypass you, so you're not actually involved in it, there's something seriously amiss in that thought process, you know. Right, so I've said my little piece now, and a little bit more, and I'm going to leave it at that. So I'll say, till the next time.